Are you someone that loves their cheese and milk? You love your dairy? Raise your hands unless you're driving. Keep your hands on the wheel. We've been told before that dairy products might not be the best thing for your health, right? How many times have you heard that? Too much fat in cheese. Are you crazy? But a new study suggests that people who eat more dairy fat have a lower risk of heart disease. With more on this, we go to Thea Demmers, a dietitian-nutritionist, and she's also from the Nutrition Suite at Concordia University's Perform Center. Thea, thank you so much for coming on the show.
My pleasure. It's great to be with you today. Thank you.
Okay, so listen, you have to realize that the fate of the world rests on your shoulders right now. For me and others that love our cheese and we love our dairy and our cream, and if we could, we'd inject it straight into our veins. I'm very excited to hear about this stuff. So give us the skinny here, pardon the pun, on dairy and heart disease. What does this latest study suggest?
Well, I think, first of all, too, it's not new in that there have been some other researchers from INAF at Université Laval and also McMaster's Pure studies that have looked at dietary intake and outcomes linked to heart disease, and they found protective or like neutral effects of dairy foods. We have been seeing the pendulum swing back towards like making sure that we have a dietary pattern that is inclusive, that includes dairy as well. And so I feel this study, it just reaffirms the messaging from Canada's new balanced plate and food guide of the importance of a balanced dietary pattern with meals that include a variety of foods, and without like having caution for the approach where we're discriminating or choosing foods based on just one nutrient, like avoiding higher fat dairy because of the fat. So because the dairy, it can have a place as part of a balanced plate in our meals, and all foods can, depending on how often we eat them and how much we eat of them. And I think it's that whole pattern that is important for optimal heart health and our health in general.
So I think the one thing that's new here is just how the evidence is mounting, and researchers are putting all of these together. I'm seeing a total of 17 other studies involving 43,000 people from the U.S., Denmark, the U.K., and you mentioned some other studies done here in Quebec, all coming to the same conclusion. This is adding a lot of weight, a lot of evidence to that, isn't it?
It is, yes. No, and it's an important study, and it's interesting too. What's novel about it, and there are other researchers starting to include this as well, is that they're using the biomarkers that they mentioned, the 15-0-pentadecanoic acid as a marker of the dairy fat. And it's interesting. They mention it as a marker of dairy fat, but it also, there's other researchers who have shared that it can be made from the human gut from dietary fiber. So it shows that it can be coming also from some plant foods like foods that are high in inulin, like asparagus, bananas, chicory, garlic, Jerusalem artichokes, leeks. And so I think that it reinforces that whole dietary pattern message because it's that it could be coming from other foods, and then our body, in our gut, it ferments those fibers as well, and it can produce that marker as well. So it shows like that the balance of having dairy as part of some of your meals and other plant-based foods is important.
We're with Thea Demmers, Nutrition Suite Supervisor at Concordia University's Perform Center. Thea, I imagine not all dairy is created equal. I imagine there's a big difference between Cheese Whiz, which doesn't even spell cheese properly for a reason, and Brie. So can you get into that here? When we talk about dairy and these studies that we've seen lowering the risk of heart disease, just what type of dairy are we talking about?
That's a great question. So, Dr. Jean-Philippe Drouin from INAF at Université Laval, he's done several reviews looking at different outcomes and then risk factors for both heart health and just overall metabolic health, like looking at our energy balance. And they looked at a whole bunch of different dairy foods. And so it's interesting you mentioned like the more processed versions versus versions that are not as processed, but they found that irregardless of fat content, and I'm not sure if they included cheese whiz, but they found that that there was a protective or like at least no harm coming from including dairy foods as part of your dietary pattern. And the Pure studies out of McMaster have also shown that same association of dairy intake and lower risk for heart disease with greater than 2 portions per day. But all that being said, those studies are all observational. So meaning we can just say an association, not like cause and effect.
Mm-hmm. Now, Thea, the one thing that, I'm looking at this study, and, dairy foods can be very high in saturated fat, right? So the one thing that the one thing that I'm going through the brain is, okay, dairy foods high in saturated fat, but these studies are showing that they can lower risks of heart disease. And that, to me, it seems counterintuitive. What do you think's going on here? Why it's counterintuitive? What do you think leads to the fact that even stuff that's high in saturated fat, like dairy products, you could see this result?
Well, I think, too, like we need to be cautious because, like I mentioned, how it was an observational study, and two, all of the dietary intake that they're sharing, even with the systematic reviews, from what my understanding of reading the studies was that it's all based on questionnaires of self-report. So those can have some errors associated with it, and just because of like on making sure you understand the questionnaire and are you responding correctly, and then also remembering, okay, what did I eat in the last month, so that you can answer appropriately. And then about the especially just the study they conducted, in some of the files, they talk about that the groups that have the highest levels of that biomarker, they were also like the group that had the lowest body weight for height. They were more physically active than their colleagues who were in the lower quartile. They had lower smoking rates, lower rates of diabetes and heart disease to start with, and plus they had higher education levels and higher intakes of veggies, fruit, fish, and lower processed meat. So all those things will put everything over in your favor anyway to reduce your risk of heart disease. So I really feel it points to like the benefits of a varied dietary pattern, and also just a healthy lifestyle that includes physical activity. They don't mention sleep, as if they asked about that in the questionnaire, but I think it's a whole package of being able to have habits that can help reduce your risk.
Talking dairy with a dietitian-nutritionist, Thea Demmers. Thea, on the subject of fat, I keep seeing indications, studies and research and stories, right, that it seems more and more often I'm seeing a study that is showing that, hey, fat isn't the boogeyman that it may have been portrayed to be over the last 20, 30 years. And I just want to know if that idea that I'm seeing is something that you're seeing as well, and that maybe we need to sort of readjust the way we perceive fats and sugar, which is on the other side of this equation, in our diet.
Yeah, no, I think we are seeing that that saturated fat might not have been as detrimental as we first supposed, and well, not first, but back in the 50s, when they had the 7 heart studies that were done, and that first kind of started coming up with this relationship or the negative view of fat. So I think that we are seeing that the importance again of that pattern and limiting added sugars and added fats, but that foods that are in, and one of the researchers that Dr. Dwayne, he talks about having foods or nutrients found in a complex matrix like cheese, or just meaning that eating the whole food and then how the nutrients are found within that food. We don't fully know all the effects, but cheese is some of the higher fat cheeses, they're also higher in vitamin K2, which have been shown to be important for heart health as well. So I think if eaten as part of a dietary pattern, then every nutrient can have a role to play.
To wrap up this interview, Thea, I want to open up your fridge. So why don't you tell our listeners when we open up your fridge, what type of milk are we finding? Is it 3.25% homogenized milk? Is it oat milk? What do we find in your fridge?
Well, yeah, to be honest, right now it's 2%. It hasn't always been. There's been times where we've had the 1%. When my sons were younger, then we were at 3.25%. And you will find some plain yogurt at like 2% milk fat, and Greek yogurt too. So we're big lovers of dairy foods in our household.
Thea, it's great talking to you. I'm very, I'm also at the 2%. So that's what's in my house. But sometimes I feel maybe I should go to the 3.25% team. I consider it all the time. Thea, thank you so much for coming on the show. Real pleasure talking to you.
Oh, well, thanks so much for having me, and have a great rest of the day.
Oh, you too. Thank you so much. That's Thea Demmers, and she is Nutrition Suite Supervisor at Concordia University's Perform Center.